Well, hello, everybody. Today we have with us Ellen Katz, who is the president and CEO of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, GCF. Ellen, thanks for giving me some of your time today.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, so we've heard of Greater Cincinnati Foundation for so long, and you have a long history of service in this community. So let's first, what's your background and tell us a little bit about GCF?
Oh, sure. So personally, I've been president and CEO of GCF for about 5.5 years. Prior to this role, I was the CEO of the Children's Home of Cincinnati, and I spent 25 years of my career there. So essentially grew up there. Started in wanting to be a child psychologist, and then I guess the rest is history. I got a graduate degree in psychology from University of Cincinnati and an MBA from Xavier.
Fantastic.
So GCF, I could talk. Yeah, GCF is our regional community foundation. It's been in existence since 1963. So we focus on an 8-county region in Southwest Ohio, Southeast Indiana, and Northern Kentucky. And our focus is creating greater vibrancy and prosperity for the community by building charitable funds and encouraging investments in very important initiatives that are happening at any given time. They range from the arts to the environment, workforce development, moving people out of poverty. It's really our job to understand and lift up what our greatest needs are and seek opportunities to fulfill those.
Well, how well said. And what kind of dollars that are deployed, and what typically, what kind of a foundation overall is GCF?
Well, actually, I just did a report for our board last week, and as of last week, we had already distributed $104 million from GCF. GCF has an asset base of about $800 million. The vast majority of those assets are held in donor-advised funds, which donors have the discretion to choose where they would like to invest. We raised about $140 million in new contributions this year. So it's been a really amazing thing to see people in our region understand that now is the time to really invest in what matters most.
And the roots of GCF, maybe you could go back to that, but ultimately those who are taking these funds together and really taking advice from your team and in the regional recommendations on how to deploy them in the most meaningful way, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who have funds at GCF who know exactly what they want to do and don't need advice and counsel. And there are a number of people who are just really interested in doing what they can in the most impactful way, or at least understanding organizations that align most effectively to their interests.
That's fantastic. Well, and speak to this as we're now here in December dealing with the pandemic. What kind of things have you seen over this past 8-9 months, and that maybe others are not quite seeing? We know about the food insecurity and, of course, the general health issues, but maybe speak to some of those and other things you're seeing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that the pandemic has demonstrated to us as a nation is we sort of failed the test of equity, if you will. So the pandemic is really hitting communities of color and disadvantaged populations much more than other populations. So we obviously, as a region and as a nation, have seen widening disparities across socioeconomic status and across communities of color. And this is just making it worse. And obviously the challenges that come with that affect all of us.
Absolutely.
So we have seen incredible things to the immediate need, sort of the critical life-saving need that we needed to address in the spring. We saw organizations that had to completely realign their practices and develop new operational capabilities to do things virtually. We saw a growing homeless population. And then, of course, homeless tend to live in homeless shelters that don't have the opportunities for spacing. So we saw the need to be able to house homeless in a different way. As you mentioned, food insecurity. We were seeing that food insecurity became something that populations that weren't experiencing before suddenly were. When it comes to the critical care that was needed at that time and currently is today, many of those workers, say at St. Elizabeth's Hospital, those are people who have children and they need childcare, and our centers were not set up to address childcare in a pandemic. So the needs have been profound. They were immediate. And then also, of course, there was need to look a little further out So one of the things that we recognized very quickly was kids were not going back to school, but how do you take kids that don't have access to technology and turn them into virtual learners? Took a lot of partnership and fundraising and connecting of resources. So it's been profound.
Yeah, and we're seeing that everywhere from the river to more of the more rural communities, different needs maybe in terms of what they're finding with that availability of broadband, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe speak to the issues. How have you been able to deploy resources in Northern Kentucky in particular, and maybe regionally as a whole here in this during the pandemic?
Sure. So when the pandemic was coming our way, and of course it hit our Western shores before it came to the Midwest, Seattle was one of the most hard-hit cities, and Seattle Community Foundation is a close colleague of ours. So we reached out and asked, what are you doing to address this? So we didn't have to come up with some new mousetrap here in the Midwest, and really got a nice blueprint for how to bring funders together and pool resources very quickly. We had a very successful effort called the COVID-19 Regional Response Fund that allowed us to raise $7.3 million in 4 months and deploy the resources in that period of time as well. So it was a very quick, low barrier means to put resources on the streets where they were needed right away. So that was sort of our first major effort. We reached 250 plus organizations at that time. And the investments in Northern Kentucky have been significant for GCF. You may be aware we have a Northern Kentucky fund where a whole family of funds hang under that banner at GCF. It's about a $50 million fund. Not in the past year, but over the past couple of decades, we've been able to invest about $45 million in the Northern Kentucky region. So it's really been significant. And then just in the past year, I had mentioned earlier about pandemic childcare. Well, Learning Grove, very, very important to all of us, and in Northern Kentucky, needed to retrofit its childcare center for that. So that's just one example. We also had a really nice opportunity to partner with Leadership Northern Kentucky and together raise some resources to be able to invest in Lincoln House and Brighton Center and other organizations in the Northern Kentucky part of our region. We've also put together 2 giving circles of late, bringing donors together so they can collectively make decisions about where they want to give in Northern Kentucky. So despite the pandemic, we've still been moving those efforts forward.
I was talking to Nancy Grayson at Horizon Funds, and who obviously we both know and respect, and she was referring to the fact that the generosity almost seems like it has increased in an exponential way during these crazy times. Yeah. You may otherwise think that it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, no, it really has increased exponentially. And we've also noticed for funds that already existed at GCF, people are granting more and more from those funds. So it really has been super powerful. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Ellen. You've now been in this world of service your entire career. As we're coming out of the pandemic, is there any message you would think to give to the community about either what's happening, opportunity to do more, maybe a positive outlook on what we have here in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky to make a difference? Any overall thoughts you have, if you're able to encapsulate them into a couple of points?
Sure. I think the collaboration that we do, and even more so can experience as a region, is profound. I mean, we're small enough, we're well-resourced enough, we're connected enough that we can come together and align our efforts to duplicate where we need to duplicate, to complement where we should. I think that is the power of this region, bar none. And then to really consider who are we bringing into our conversations to understand what the community really needs is also really important. So getting the voice of the customers. But I really also have to say that I'm so impressed by our business sector and its recognition of being part of the solution to bringing our region back to where it was and then further along. Our business sector is really, really remarkable.
Well, we should be appreciative of those companies, large and small.
Yeah.
To your point, who really have stepped up, and they don't have to, right? I mean, it's good business, but yeah.
Yeah, we also we have almost an inclusive capitalism movement. It's afoot here, and I think that it's really going to blossom, where companies are recognizing that the quality of their jobs is paramount to the life that people live here. And the business sector really wants to be part of the vibrancy of this community, and inclusive capitalism is the way to get there. So it's pretty exciting.
I love the way you put it. Well, and actually with that, with respect to your time, I'm going to end there because I think that's a great message of the efforts of what you're doing and connecting for this, helping to do this for the region. So I appreciate your constant work there and all the good work you've been putting in for so long.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for lifting it up. You're doing a great job.
Thanks.